14 years apart, two Uyghurs from Xinjiang carried the Olympic flame in Beijing. One is now in the U.S., while his father is locked away in a Chinese jail. We sat down with him to hear his take on this year's Games.
A smiling Uyghur athlete featured in the spotlight at Beijing's opening ceremony for the Winter Olympics Friday. But was it a feel-good message about China's ethnic unity? Or in the eyes of the suppressed, a political move to whitewash what's happening in China's Xinjiang region, where the ruling Communist Party is accused of committing widespread human rights abuses?
That is very offensive to Uyghurs, especially at this moment, because millions of Uyghurs are languishing in the camps, in the jails.
Kamal Turk Yaukum, a former Uyghur torchbearer, now a dissident, calls Beijing's selection of his peer for this year's Olympics an elevated form of puppetry and says China has no position to host the Winter Games. This after reports say Beijing worsened its repression against the Uyghur minority and caused huge suffering to his family.
One of the casualties of this play was my father. He was a chief editor and one of the compilers of those literature textbooks for Uyghur kids. So he was arrested in 2016 October and was later sentenced to 15 years in prison.
Back in 2008, Yaukum was a star student, chosen to help carry the Olympic flame when Beijing hosted the Summer Games. At that time, he calls state pressure on Uyghurs to assimilate as repulsive, but relatively tolerable. So, being chosen to represent not only China, but also the Uyghurs at an international event, Yaukum said he was immensely honored to carry the torch. Despite disappointment, organizers wouldn't let him run wearing a Uyghur hat. But Uyghur people are proud of their ethnic identity, language, and culture, so the Chinese Communist Party's attempts at assimilation were not successful. So it changed its tactics.
They want to either fully eliminate or fully assimilate Uyghurs.
Now Yaukum says China has a much bigger goal. Using Beijing's global infrastructure project, the Belt and Road Initiative, China desires quick and total control over the Xinjiang region because of its geographical importance to the project.
The Chinese dream become a nightmare for Uyghurs and Tibets and other ethnic minorities nowadays.
So Beijing ramped up its oppression, starting with abolishing Uyghur language education. In its propaganda, Beijing portrays writers and editors of Uyghur language textbooks as turning Uyghur children into so-called terrorists.
So these people had to be punished. They had to be severely punished. The books has to be confiscated and burned, and the entire Uyghur language education has to be abolished.
As a result, Yaukum's father was arrested, along with his colleagues. They were charged on allegations that their work editing textbooks were subversive, even though the books had been used for years in schools. By then, Yaukum and the rest of his family had traveled to the U.S. to study abroad. They haven't returned to China, nor heard from Yaukum's father ever since. Today, Western researchers, journalists, and governments have documented widespread evidence of the suppression. It shows that more than 1 million Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in Xinjiang have been detained in internment and forced labor camps. The allegations are a top reason the U.S. and its allies chose not to send diplomatic officials to the Winter Games. Beijing denies all of the accusations. What's more, China's decision to thrust a young Uyghur athlete into the spotlight only stirred up more controversy. White House spokesperson Jen Psaki told reporters,
"We can't allow this to be a distraction."
From the human rights abuses, the genocide that we're seeing in parts of China.